We're live. It's the Screaming Wolf podcast. I'm Nigel. Right below me is Jakiahya. Matt's not here this week. He had some family come into town, and he was spending a little time with them and didn't want to do the stream today because, I don't know. What's family? Who
Family
cares?
Matters or something like that.
Yeah, something strange. Something strange like that. Happy June to everyone. Anyone who's living like me down here in Florida just got hit with our first tropical storm of the year. Tons of fun. Hopefully
Only
my
like
internet doesn't.
400 more to go, right? It's only June.
Yeah,
You got a
yeah.
while.
It's it's only like almost through June. We've got plenty. We'll get hit by like 4 hurricanes this year. It'll be fucking great. So good. I love filing insurance reports. It'll be a blast. Um, but as I said, this is the Screaming Walls podcast. This is where we discuss. We make our hot takes on other people's hot takes, and we're gonna have a great old time. The format's going to be a little bit different today. Instead of having a video, we're actually going to be going over just some kind of current news topics. If you watch previous streams in the past, it's something like me and Matt have done when Jakiahya hasn't been here. Um, just simply because it's a little bit easier, and I'd like to save some of the videos when we make sure that we have all three people here. So we're just going to be going over a lot of the top news stories today. Fun thing about this podcast, instead of being sponsored by whatever we're drinking for the night, we are sponsored. It's a fake sponsor, but it's going to be fun. Um, but we are sponsored by Flogging Molly's BDSM Emporium. They've got whips, chains, flogs, plugs, and ponchos. The one-stop shop for all your bedroom BDSM needs. Remember, you need enthusiastic consent for sex, but no doesn't mean shit until it's followed up by the safe word here.
Oh no.
And I think I think that leads us into our first topic, which I think is probably our best topic, being that it is Pride Month, and you're seeing. I know here in Florida, our Pride parade is here in Memorial Day, at least where I live specifically in Florida. So I guess it's a little late on Pride. I don't hear a lot about it here, but one of the things that's come up in the news pretty consistently almost every year, but I've seen it really pop up on a lot of debate spaces online, on Twitch and on YouTube, where you have a lot of people discussing kink at Pride. Um, so I guess what we could kind of open this up with is, Jakiahya, what do you think about kink at Pride in particular? And I mean, you've been to more Pride parades than I have. Um, is this something that even seems like a legit thing? Because, like, is this something that is legitimate? If it is legitimate, do you think it's necessary? And then I guess I would ask, like, how intrinsic is it to Pride parades just all together?
Well, so I know we've talked about this. Like, I'm not one of the most well informed on like gay culture and gay past. It's actually something that I've been working on a lot. But I guess my first stance would be a lot of people do consider it necessary. They think that kink is a part of the identity of especially the older gay community who were the front runners of fighting for gay rights. So like they think that a lot of that stuff is inherent in who they like it's wrapped up in part of what being gay means to them. And they believe that because of that like it belongs there. For me the argument comes down to like how appropriate we feel about our public spaces. Like because like don't get me wrong, I'm more than happy to see naked people on the street, but I'm a 30-year-old male. Like people may not want their kids out there for that. People may not want, like I don't know, whatever, but these are public events. They're not hosted in a private space. They're on the street. They're in parks. They're whatever. So the argument comes down to whether or not we believe that, like, regardless of how wrapped up in our identity as homosexuals that is it appropriate to share that level of sexuality with the public? And I don't mean obviously sexuality, homosexuality, like physical sexuality.
Yeah.
um,
Openness with the society being like, yeah, we have sex.
Right.
Um,
So that's the big question that's always on people's mind and that like everybody talks about is like is the fact that it is intrinsically part of our past more important than the fact that these are hosted in public spaces?
I mean, that seems interesting to me, because I mean, uh, like, why do you think that kink and like the leather, the BDSM outfits, those kind of things. I have questions as to why that seems so intrinsic to gay culture. Like I never thought that kink itself was so intrinsic to gay culture, um, or just the gay identity. I guess that would be, um, you
Uh,
know. Go ahead.
no, I'm just trying to think. So I again, this is one of the things that I need to be more up on, but I think part of it has to do with that a lot of that stuff started as like the the retaliation to not having rights. You know, like it's like, listen, we're here. This is who we are, and like very Rocky Horror Picture Show. You know,
Yeah.
very over the top, overt. Like, look at
Well,
like this is who I
well,
am. Like, go on.
yeah, and even a lot of like early gay culture would have been. I mean, I guess now that I think about it a little bit, it actually does make some kind of sense because early gay culture and early gay communities would have formed around like Turkish bathhouses, places where the sexuality of being gay was incredibly private, and probably that was the most adventurous gay people were willing to go do those things, because there was always that risk of being outed, risk of being caught. um, so it can understand, like I can kind of get that to the extent of like, if you're to form a society, if you're to form a culture, and you were to have this culture and essentially be forced to exist in the recesses, or the kind of the dark hidden places of a society, um, that kink and more, I'm gonna say, like, I'll say this in the most, I mean this in the most literal term possible, like sexual deviancy, which would be like the most commonplace idea of like what these kind of practices would be.
Right. Well, and
Um,
I think you nailed it pretty well because, like, even this article that I was reading, it talks about, like, before Pride parades, our community spaces were bathhouses, dungeons, public restrooms. And it talks about how, like, queerness can be about lust, love, or both, but by the same token, kink, leather, and BDSM aren't exclusively about sex. And I've heard that a lot, too, where, like, kink is about a community. Like, your leather community is more than just, the people you have sex with. Like, you spend time with them, you build a whole entire kink community with them, and that's
yeah.
and it's about intimacy beyond sex. It's about relationships. It's about friendships. It's about all levels of intimacy, sex included, but more than that.
So okay, so I kind of get where that would come from, I guess, as a thing. Uh, as not a gay person, I'll throw my fucking 2 cents into the ring. But as a society member that exists around, gay people on a regular basis, um, and sees pride parades and things along those lines, I will certainly say that I think kink at pride is terrible branding for the gay community. It seems to always come up, and it seems to be like this fundamental disconnect, um, from the straight community to the gay community, because that is like constantly something that's brought up with anti-gay people, in the sense that it's like, you know, uh, you have these homosexuals, and again, I hate to use this word, but it's like this sexual deviancy kind of idea that comes about from it. And then when you see a lot of these kink outfits and a lot of these kink things going on at Pride and things like that, like, you know, it's really easy for opponents to all of a sudden come forward and find images. And I mean, you can find images like this all the time of people who are really against kink and pride, where you have people in like their fucking slave outfit or their dog outfit or whatever the fuck, and they're up there like, and they're interacting with like younger fucking people, kids sometimes.
Right.
And that immediately, to the straight community, like, I obviously don't have a problem with gay people, but like, I look at that and I just go, that's a fucking problem, guys. Like, that's something that should be fucking corralled right there. Because if this were any other fucking scenario, if you were just sitting there like taking your kid to a park or taking your kid to a restaurant or taking your kid wherever, and you had someone come up in like a BDSM outfit and just start going like, "Oh my kid," and like high fiving your fucking kid and interacting with them, you'd be like, "Get the fuck away from my kid, you weird motherfucker."
Well,
Like, who in the
well,
fuck are you?
I,
Um,
I I think that's like it's weird. So first of all, I think that sexualization or sexuality, children aside, is a part of the gay community. As much as some gay people like to try to pretend that it's not. Like a lot of our
Mhm.
past comes from like embracing sexuality on multiple levels that straight people may be too afraid to. Like
Sure.
again in this one article it talks about like women being able to feel like a sense of sexual empowerment from their kink community that they couldn't get with straight friends or in commonplace communities or whatever. Um,
Certainly.
but but I think that goes down to like with it being public, like should we be either a limiting that, and I think it's not inappropriate to say we probably should, or b make it so that Pride is not a public event that children can just walk out of their fucking house and be like, oh my god, look, there's people in fucking assless chaps or whatever, but at the same time, like
That's
we're
actually I think that's a really cool idea. You could have, instead of like pride parades, pride cons. That would
yeah.
be some wild shit right there.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, but the thing is that like we get down into like being gay, especially now, is about being allowed to be gay in public, being allowed to be gay in open spaces, and being proud to be who we are on all fronts or whatever. So like I can tell you that I do not imagine a world in which gay people would accept having a private event for Pride.
that's a good point. Yeah,
Um,
that's a good point.
I just don't think it would happen. But it's just like how much of pushing your sexuality on someone, even not just children. Like I understand that children or whatever, but like that's not okay. But even adults, like maybe not everyone is interested in fucking walking out their house, because some of these pride parades happen on people's doorsteps. I know they do in a lot of cities. Like people live in apartments above these, whatever.
Yeah, I
So
mean, when I lived in Cincinnati, Pride went right down Main Street. And I mean, I lived like I think I lived like a block over, if I
yeah,
remember correctly. It's been fuck man, it's been like 15 years. But yeah, I mean, like going to work, I couldn't have avoided Pride.
yeah.
You know? And I mean, in Cincy, nothing was really all ever that wild or crazy. And that's where I do wonder, like, how much of the kind of constant conversation that comes up about kink at Pride, a lot of the things that on the conservative side of the aisle, they always sit there and they bring up like all this shit. Like, how much of this is just like crazy California shit, or like crazy fucking, where it's like how much of this is just like the Pride Parade in this one major fucking city where you just have like the culmination of like this massive group of unmanageable individuals that like no Pride Parade coordinator could possibly fucking wrangle. You
Well,
know,
and another part of it too, like the other article that we had pulled up that has the it's a guy writing about being he's gay but he's against kink at Pride. And one of the things he
yeah,
brings up is like we should be celebrating being gay because we all believe that that is something that you are born with. You are gay by birth, and that is just the way it is. Kink is a choice that you make, regardless of how intrinsically wrapped into our society it is as gay people. It is a choice that you make to be kinky or to be part of that community. And beyond that, we don't have ownership to kink. Straight people have kink communities of their own that they're proud of and they're happy to be part of and that they
yeah.
love. So like why does it need to be so wrapped up into who we are when it's not exclusive to us, I don't
Well, and
understand.
my argument would be that, do we think that this is good overall for the community? You know, do we think that long term this is something that's going to support our cause or really harm our cause? And I would say that long term, I can't imagine it could be hopeful. There are too many variables that come into play, and it seems like even within the gay community, there is discussion about this. You can find tons of debates online about gay people where they bring on like gay panels and they just go like, who has feelings about this, one way or another.
Right.
Um, and is this so much so the LGBTQ plus IA group kind of having, is this like part of the spiralization of like, this is our community, but our community is completely borderless, is this kind of one of these things where it's like, okay, fuck, does the gay community eventually need to bring up those boundaries of like what it means to be part of like the mainstream gay community. Um, and I don't know, kink could be one of those things that could potentially be at the top of the chopping block, but it does seem like it's ingrained so much so in gay culture because
Mhm.
obviously, just like that article brought up, it's like, well, you don't need to be kinky to be gay, and you don't need to be gay to be into kink shit.
Right.
So how much of this is just something that maybe our culture needs to evolve, and potentially get away from this being something that is so uniquely us.
Well, and the
It's
other
just
the other side of that argument is maybe we as a culture need to evolve into a culture that is okay with a kink community. Like as long as because the argument is that like being kinky and being part of a kink community are separate things. They're not the
mhm,
same thing. You know what I mean? Because like there is a kink
mhm.
culture and there is kinky when you're in the bedroom. So like
Yeah,
that is the argument is that we exist in pride as part of our kink culture, not as like hey, we're trying to fuck everybody and be kinky or whatever. So like
yeah.
so the argument is like do we like you said do we need to evolve out of assuming that kink is necessary as part of our culture, or do we as a society need to evolve to accept those communities as a part of as just a part of life and a part of who we are as people?
Yeah, because I mean, there are other things in gay culture that the gay community has really evolved from, has evolved out of. Again, some of those things that we discussed, Turkish bathhouses, things like that. They don't really exist anymore.
I mean,
The stereotypical. Am I
bathhouses for gay
totally
men,
wrong?
bathhouses for gay men 100% exist.
Do they? I thought
Yes.
most of them went out during the AIDS scare because that was like a big place where AIDS was being fucking spread.
So I know for sure there's one in Columbus, and there's a few like they're pretty prevalent in big cities like Chicago, New York, and shit like that. They still
But
exist.
but is that something that's still intrinsic to gay cult? I won't ask you. How many fucking gay men do you know that have gone and frequented Turkish bathhouses?
I mean, personally, not that many, but
Because
you.
I haven't seen this massive fucking individual. It's like, oh yeah, fuck, we all go. Like
But
Wednesday nights, we all go back, get
but
lubed
that's
up,
also
fucking wrestle.
But the other thing
Like,
is, how many gay people do you know that are part of the kink community? Because like when I was living in Dayton, I knew
no,
a
no, no, no,
lot.
no, 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 no. Hold on. I didn't say the kink community. I
Well,
said
but
things that have evolved out of the mainstream gay
right,
community.
but that
That's
was my
like that's a
point.
difference.
But here's my thing. The reason I'm explaining it this way is because a
Mhm.
lot of the people that I knew when I was living like in Dayton, they were part of the kink community, and they also considered like bathhouses and stuff part of their community. You know what I mean? So like I unfortunately I am someone who was raised in like a like a I don't know, white fucking hillbilly fucking family. So like I being part of the gay community was not something that like really was built on me until I was god probably in my mid to late 20s, and even now I'm a nerd who sits at home more than I get involved in any kind of gay community.
Yeah, but isn't that a separation between the two communities itself? Or is the idea of going to like a Turkish bathhouse or going and fucking utilizing a glory hole at a fucking trucker rest stop, is that still like intrinsically part of the gay? Is that like a rite of passage in the fucking gay community still?
I don't know
Like,
if it is for the
I
gay
don't think
community at large, but I would argue
yeah.
that for some people, yes, it is.
But would they be considered more part of that like kink community?
Probably.
Because that's what I'm trying to differentiate from here. Because it feels like a lot of these kink things. Because I get the early onset of what we would consider like the gay community back when you still had to be very secretive with your homosexuality. Back when you did have to go to those recesses of society in order to express your sexuality in such a way. Like I understand that.
Right.
It certainly feels like as time has gone on, you absolutely don't need to do like in modern society. You can just sit there and go, "I'm a gay man," and no one says poo poo. No one's just like you really don't have to fucking hide it. There are far too many individuals on this planet that really don't have to hide their sexuality in such a way that feels in any way aside from bad jokes from the 90s still intrinsic to gay culture
I think
in,
part of
in
that
really any way aside from. aside from the subsect of what I would say is gay culture, which would be kink. You
Right.
know,
Well,
um,
for me,
but
like,
am I wildly wrong here?
I don't think you're totally wrong, because here's the thing, like, ultimately, one of the things that, like, I'm happy that we're starting to, like, so I watched the show New Girl, and there's an episode in New Girl where one of the characters, he's white, he tries to support his black friend by doing all of these black things with him. And by the end of the episode, he's like, dude, I don't know why you, like, he's like, I want to do whatever you want to do as a black man. And he's like, being black means whatever I want it to mean because I'm black. And, like, so
Yeah.
the segue of that is, like, one of the nice things about being a gay man in the 21st century is that, like, being gay means whatever I want it to mean to me. It means that I can stay at home with my boyfriend and play video games, or, if we ever decide to have an open relationship, it means that I can go to a bathhouse if I want to, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, being gay means whatever I want it to mean. So, like, I ultimately, I think I settle on the side of, like, I don't think that kink is that intrinsically tied, and maybe it's just the older generation that did fight more strongly for our rights, the ones that, like, were at the riots before they were pride parades and stuff like that, because they feel that kink is a part of them. They still remember what it's like to hide who they were as a gay person and have to go to bathhouses and have to build a kink community because their community outside of that didn't embrace who they were. So maybe it is important for now to
Sure.
support those people, but maybe in 10 or 20 years, when those people don't need to be part of it or feel more comfortable in the fact that they are happy here and that they can be part of this. Like, that's the argument,
Yeah.
is, like, how important is it for us to support the fact that these people's communities are what enabled them to be confident and open gay people today. That's why I think some people still consider it important.
Then I would guess I would ask, you know, I would wonder where the line is where kink would stray too far because I imagine something kink wise where a pride community would be like, you're not doing that. No, like
Well, and I don't know.
you're
I
not
don't know
doing that.
what lines they
Okay.
have
Um,
crossed. Truthfully, at Pride, like, so you've
yeah,
got you've got people who wear leather
yeah.
and
I'll,
ride down on
I'll,
a float half
I'll,
naked.
I'll Mhm.
But you've
I
also
was just
got
gonna say, I'll clear
gone.
this up right now. I don't. I think there's a bit of a lag. I was just gonna say, I'll clear this up right now. If you want my honest opinion, I think kink at Pride will not be a fucking conversation 10 years from now because it will just be like, I think Pride will eventually turn into this thing where like not a ton of people show up, and the people that do show up are just like normal motherfuckers walking around. They're just like, oh yeah, yeah, you know, like.
Well,
So I don't think long term it will really be like this big thing. From almost it'll become like a meme almost. But I just wonder. The only thing I get concerned about is like the the damage it could occur. But I don't actually think. I think this is a very small thing that is blown way out of proportion.
well,
So
right.
don't take
That's
it as
kind of
like me attacking.
no, no, no. I feel the same way, but I feel it on the other side too. Like, people who are, like, blowing it out of proportion against gay people. Like, I don't. Now, I have never been to a pride parade at fucking, like, in, like, California or New York, but, like, I've never been to a pride festival where people are fucking in the streets or on, like, floats or anything. It's like they're wearing leather and they're half naked. But even the ones who aren't in kink, like the ones who aren't in leather, there's still people that are half naked walking around, like, so, like, it's not like kink is the exclusive issue with, like, the public nudity and
Yeah.
all of that stuff, you know what I mean? Because they're not.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I would certainly say like I have a son. You know, I won't take my son to Pride. You know, just simply like I won't take my son to Pride because I know it's there. It's they're they're guys who wear like speedos and guys who wear just outright thongs and there's like naked women and there's a lot of sexuality going on and I definitely think my kid's too young to really be exposed to a lot of that sexuality. Just sexuality, just in general, because it's like he just doesn't get it. You know, he's just a little too young. Um,
First of all, a speedo is just a fucking swimwear. It's no different than a woman's swimwear. Let's just be honest. But when we get into less than
let's
that,
also just be and also let's just be honest. It's a dude wearing a speedo, fucking twerking his asshole.
Right, right,
So
right. Well,
let's just also be fucking clear as to exactly what I'm meaning here.
right. Well,
So
you know.
so yeah, like I don't take my kid to Pride, and I would certainly look at anyone because like that's always the big contention you hear on the conservative side. It's like, well, they fucking do this shit around kids and stuff like that, and that's where I look at the gay community and people who go to Pride, and it's like y'all should be policing this shit because of just how poor optics that it is. Okay, like if you have like a fucking 10-year-old fucking like dropping it low and fucking twerking his little ass off in the middle of a crowd of fucking adults, that looks really fucking bad. And if you
Yep.
have some dude in a fucking dog suit walking up to a fucking kid just standing there at the side of the fucking street, that also looks really fucking bad. Like, there may be nothing wrong with it. I totally understand. Maybe that guy in the dog suit is a father of fucking five kids and he fucking takes them to school every fucking morning and packs their fucking lunch and fucking loves the shit out of those five kids. Maybe he's the best fucking parent in the world and has no sexual implications towards the child at all, but this is just his personal fucking thing. He wants to support Pride and he's into fucking kink. But, sir, that fucking picture out of context harms your community as a whole. Okay? Like, that is some shit that if I really wanted to sit here and be a total fucking cocksucker on the fucking opposite aisle of this fucking conversation, I would have 50 fucking pictures of this shit. And I would just bring up everyone's like, oh yeah, we'll fucking defend this. And it would be, and you'd be sitting there like, listen, man, like that one asshole does not fucking like account for us all, okay? Like, don't act like he fucking does. And I'd be like, okay, well, what about this one? And I just do this a dozen times over, and it would be the most retarded conversation that could possibly fucking exist. So, I mean, I look at that and I think if there was one bit of advice I could give to the gay community about kink at Pride, it's like, hey, police those things that happen, but I completely understand the other side of the aisle, which I've heard a lot of people say, where it's like, hey, don't bring your fucking kid to Pride.
Yeah.
Like, don't fucking do it.
Yeah.
Like, don't do it. We like kids. We have no problem with fucking kids. We don't want to sit here and just do this thing because children are a part of our fucking
Down.
society. But don't bring your fucking kid to Pride. And that's my take on it. Is just
Right.
like, yeah, don't bring your kid to Pride. Like,
Right.
even if your kid is gay, I would say, or if your kid is gay, take them to Pride, but really tell them like, hey, don't act a fucking fool. It's like, why is that, Mom? It's like, because your actions can have larger consequences to the fucking society as a whole. Understand that, little Jimmy. Like, no, I don't want you wearing fucking
Get
like,
down.
I don't want you wearing like cut off jean shorts, dressing like fucking James Charles, out here acting in a rather sexual manner around a bunch of fucking adults. Why is that, Mom? This is just how I am. I know nothing's gonna happen. Maybe I'm a hyper intelligent fucking 10-year-old with like 140 IQ, and I fully understand the ramifications of like the society around me. I'm a real fucking God with it kid. Ain't nobody gonna fucking be abducting me. But guess what, Johnny? Fox News is there, and they're gonna record exactly what the fuck you do, and it's gonna make your life a living hell and life for gay people more difficult.
Yep.
So that's my thing.
Yeah, I'm still not sure exactly where I stand on it, to be honest. I think that probably just for the safety of like making everyone happy, I pretty much settle in the, hey guys, be careful who like what you're doing, and hey other people, don't
Yeah.
bring your kids. Like that's really it. Elakar, stop.
So we agree there. So our only real contention. Oh shit! I just ripped my headphones. I ripped my headphones out. So our only real contention in any real way, shape, or form about kink at Pride is that I just simply think that kink at Pride is bad branding for the gay community. If I were a gay man, I'd probably be on the other side of that, where I'd be like, yeah, I don't really want kink at Pride. Why is that? It's like, because it fucking makes me have to account for a lot of stupid shit. Um, but,
I just at the end of the day, like I said, the reason that we have contention there is because me fighting for being like having gay rights and being gay in public, like the fight was getting bullied in high school, which I dealt with easily because my mom was really supportive. And
God, you're a big guy.
right, yeah, that assists too. You're absolutely right. Um And I went to marches, I signed petitions, like I did stuff like that, but like I was not in riots. I did not get attacked. I did not, I did not have to deal with anything of quite that caliber. So
Yeah.
I don't wrap, like I don't have any reason to wrap something like kink up into my identity because I did not utilize that as a safe space like other people did. So I can understand why it's important to them and why it is important to them that it's part of who they are as a gay person.
Well, and I would say generally in my experience with you over the time that we've known each other, I think you've probably been a pretty positive role model to the gay community, like just in your actions. Um, I've never seen you really go out and do anything too terribly outlandish. You've always been outspoken for your community, um, but I've never seen you really go do anything too wild. I've never seen you as been a bad ambassador to the gay community.
I like to think
Even
I'm
with
not.
lots of people, yeah, yeah. Well, and
Please shut
that's
the
always
door.
how you're gonna. That's always how you're gonna win it. You're gonna win it through the actions of the majority of your individuals and how they relate to the society as a whole, versus the more extreme members of your community, because they're always going to have like people who are against. I can completely understand the people on the more anti-gay side of it of looking at the kink community and going, I don't know if I want this to be like a sizable portion of my society. Like,
Right.
I can get that. I don't want to live in like the Nero times of Rome, where it was just like, grab anybody off the street and fuck the shit out of them. Like, I don't think that's a good society to live in. Um, and I think a certain level of shame is in society. So I can understand their concerns. Um, but again, I just think this is probably a rather small part of the gay community because I haven't really seen a lot of it, and I think it's probably really blown out of proportion. So, yeah. Anything else to say about kink at Pride?
Uh, I actually just have a question. This isn't necessarily related, but it's from this one of these articles. It says
For
today
show.
I ate lunch in the park next to a heterosexual couple who made out for an hour. No one thought of the children, no cops tried to stop it, no one went to jail, and Twitter didn't need to discourse about it. To me, that's far more offensive than a dominatrix wearing latex or a leather pup playing fetch with his daddy. I'm not sure
Is
how I
it? I
feel
mean,
about that.
yeah. I think that's a real apples to oranges comparison there. Um, I would have agreed with that. I mean, first of all, I think public displays of affection, like again, I can completely understand why a lot of people are like, "Can you two stop making out like right here? Like it's gross to watch." Like
Right.
beyond anything else, like I don't care if two people are like fucking kissing or showing affection to one another, but like watching two people make out, I don't care who the fuck they are. When you're just like sitting there at a fucking park, like that's fucking gross to watch. Like, do you really want to hear the ASMR of just like while you sit there and eat your fucking sandwich? Like maybe there's a certain part of the population that does, but I don't.
Right. And
So,
for me, that
um,
transcends sexuality. Like, I'm talking everybody. Lesbians,
yeah,
straight people, whatever. We don't need
yeah,
it.
yeah. Listen, y- you know, I don't know anyone like two hot chicks kissing is like stereotypically like a straight guy thing where it's like fuck yeah. But everyone thought the scene in God, what was that fucking where you had the two popular rich kids, um, like pretty up the ugly girl as like a prank. And then there was that scene in that fucking movie where like the two, she's like, "Oh, I'll show you how to kiss," and they like kissed, and then like as they left, there was like this bit of spit that like stuck between their lips.
Ugh.
I don't know anyone that didn't look at that and go, "That's fucking disgusting." like that's fucking gross as shit. So, um, yeah, I think that that's just in general for everyone. I think more extreme public displays of affection are always gross. Um, but I would certainly say that rationale of like I saw two straight people making out. Now, why can't I play frisbee with my fucking human dog in the fucking park? It's like little different, little different, guys. like little different. Okay,
I think
let's just all clear that out the way right now. Those aren't the same fucking thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think your point about not bringing kids to Pride, the more I read this, the more I think about it. Like it really just lands home, because like this article talks about like kink at Pride is about consenting adults elating in one of the many ways people experience their queerness and individual identities. And it's like, yes, but like those children who were brought by their parents are not consenting adults.
Yeah, children literally cannot consent.
So,
Like
yeah,
children literally cannot consent, and parents cannot consent for children. It doesn't matter if both of the kids' parents are okay with that kid getting fucked in a porno. That's still child porn, and those parents should still be buried under the fucking bridge.
right.
So, like,
So,
like those parents should be allowed to have like mob justice brought upon.
so
Like, all right, we'll
after
bring him out to the square, and everyone gets to kick him in the balls until he dies. Like,
So after reading it and circling back, I think I land still at the I'm cool with kink at Pride because I understand the importance of it, but maybe don't embrace children as much. Let them get a little older. And hey, parents, just don't bring your fucking kids.
yeah, I would certainly say, that any parent that's bringing their kid to Pride, I inherently have questions about that parent's motive. I'm wondering how good of a parent. Um,
Well, and
but
I would argue
but
that.
like,
Go on. I'm sorry.
well, I was just gonna say, but like, there's nothing. I would say at that point, there's nothing, especially if you're going to have a parade, a pride parade, or a pride festival in a public space. Um, there's nothing that the gay community can do about that, because it is public. Like people
Right.
can just walk the fuck up to these things,
Right.
and what are you gonna do? You're just gonna constantly, because then that's also a bad thing. You have gay people that sit there, and if someone fucking brings their fucking 10-year-old up there, it's like, oh hey, what's going on here? Then you got some big burly gay dude in a fucking like suit going up, going, get that fucker out of here, because then it makes it look like the gay community hates kids, so you're in a bit of a catch-22 at that.
Yeah.
um, you know, but it does seem to be like the gay community might be at a bit of like a crossroads between like, okay, do we go with all the kink stuff and just deal with all this bullshit every fucking year, or do we tell people not to bring their fucking kids around, and then it's an adults only thing? Um, I think either is an acceptable option, but they may be at a bit of a crossroads where it's like, listen, we either got to kick kink, and kink, you guys can go do your own fucking thing. I guarantee you, there's 85 different fucking kink conventions in New York every fucking year, and maybe that could be a thing that the gay community may have to come to terms with, where it's like, listen, if you want to do your kink thing, there are lots of places and lots of spaces and lots of conventions and lots of times you can come together about those kind of things. But at the big main gay pride parade, maybe we don't want that here. Here's 18 different reasons why we don't want it. Here's 18 different reasons why we just think that this is just not what we want to promote. We don't have a problem with it. You guys are more than welcome to show up sans the fucking puppy play outfit or something like that. But just let's not do this here. Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's always an interesting thing to come around, because it is that kind of. I think that's one of the more fundamental. It almost touches on like one of the more fundamental differences that I think the gay community has a hard time understanding about the straight community, I guess, and the straight community has a hard time understanding about the gay community, and that's because the gay community is very sexually open. That is definitely part of the gay community. That's like we're very sexually open. We're very open with how we feel. We're very open with what we want to do. It's sort of like a brand for our community, is that it's like, yeah, listen, we accept all comers, literally. Um, so,
You're the worst.
so but for the straight community, I think one of the main reasons why the straight community is more sexually closed off is because the straight community obviously deals with a lot more children. Um, it's inherently the main reason that we fuck. Like it's kind of what we do. We create smaller humans. Um, and because of that, you have children and you do look at sex a different way. And I won't lie, like you do like after having children, at least for me, but it seems to be for most parents that I find you do become more sexually conservative. You tend to settle down with one person. You're generally living with your kid. Um, Sex becomes something more just intimately between you and one other person, and you know you could almost say like it sounds bad to say it gets into like this kind of rigmarole, kind of like this methodical thing you do, but it's really isn't. You're like yeah, I do this with my wife, I do this with my husband. We just spend time with another. No, we don't always do the spiciest shit in the bedroom, but we don't need to because it's just really between me and her. Um, and beyond that, when you have children, you do realize how stupid they are and how completely just inexperienced and how like I mean, you have a kid and you can just see like, oh, your brain just is not fucking done cooking yet, is it? And they really just don't understand a lot of shit. So you become very protective of them, and particularly when it comes to things like sex, that's always a parent's first fear is that their kid is going to be exposed sexually way too early for them, and it's going to fuck them up for life because it does tend to fuck them up for life. Um, and so the straight community looks at the gay community and goes, "You guys are so open sexually that I just can't feel comfortable having my children around you." And then the gay community pushes back and go, "Don't fucking put your sexual hangups on us just because we're comfortable sexually." But then they won't understand it. It's like, well, part of the reason I have a lot of these sexual hangups is because the children I have in my life are a massive portion of my life. And no matter what, if we're going to interact, be neighbors, be around one another, I've got to have a certain level of comfortability of you being around my fucking children. And I'm not saying either is right or either is wrong. I'm just saying this feels to be like a fundamental disconnect that I see between the two communities, particularly when they correspond with each other over issues like kink and pride. There are a lot of gay people who are like, why the fuck do you all have these hangups? And there are a lot of straight people who are like, why the fuck are you guys so goddamn weird? And it all tends to revolve around this kind of fundamental difference between like the sexual closeness of the straight community and the sexual openness of the gay community. Um, and I don't know if that's ever necessarily been discussed in a public forum as to why those things exist.
I don't know. I definitely think it would be interesting to see, or it will be interesting to see maybe how things change over the next 10 years or so. Because like, I think that people should be learning about sex younger than they are. Well, in a safer space. People are learning about it a lot on the internet on their own, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is like talked about in schools, like contraception should be a bigger talking point, stuff like that. Like, I think that I would like to see sexual openness to a degree become a more mainstream thing. Not because I want kids to have sex younger or anything, but because kids are going to have sex, and I would much rather them learn about like sex as an idea and sex as like a fundamental property of life rather than this like taboo fucking thing that we act like it is sometimes.
Yeah, I guess if I were to have to talk about my feelings about like sexual education in schools, is I feel like it's a really tough road to walk because like uh, let's get a clear definition of what we mean by sexual education taught in schools. So when you say sexual education taught in schools, what exactly do you like?
I
What should a teacher be teaching a kid about?
I mean, I don't know. The biggest things are that sex is real. You're going to have sex. Contraception is very fucking important. Stop telling people that not having sex is the way to go because no one gives a fuck.
Yeah,
Teenagers have sex. It's what it is. Um, and maybe discuss like maybe discuss how fucking weird it is. Like that's one thing that like like when you hold sex up on like a pedestal as if it's like like a Christian ideal of like this sanctified sex or whatever with the one. Like everyone gets so fucking hung up on like, oh my god, what if I do it wrong? What if bro, sex is fucking weird. Even for people who know what they're doing. It's weird, it's funny, it's awkward, it's silly, it's sexy, like it's all of those things. And like I think it would be nice if kids could understand. And when I say kids, I mean like teenagers, not kids.
yeah. I guess we could just to clarify that as well, real quick before you go on your next point. what age should this be taught? Because you said younger. I remember
Probably.
getting like sex ed, I think, when I was like 12 or 13,
That's
something like
when
that.
I think that's when I got it as well. But our sex ed was very much like, yeah, people have sex. Don't do it if you don't want to get pregnant or get diseases. And it was like, oh, thanks. That was useful.
I mean, that's technically not wrong. That's kind of actually where I was talking about, where it feels like this really tricky road to walk because you can have these conversations about like, hey, because here's my take on it is if I'm having conversations with kids who are 12 to 13 years old, I don't actually think that that's a terrible time to have that conversation. Firstly, I think parents should have that. My kid is 9. He has asked questions. It's like we sit there and watch a movie, and like we'll watch, Indiana Jones or something like that. And he like passionately grabs and fucking kisses her and shit like that. Like fade to black. It's like he'll be like, "What happened there?" And it's like, "Well, they probably had sex." Like the next scene will be them like walking out of the same place. That time has passed. And they probably had
Right.
sex. And he's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's something that like adults do with one another, man. Like it happens. Like, hey, man, like." You were born, and I have a wife. If my wife is not your mom, so like they do it,
Right.
So it's like this just happens. Like it's nothing to be ashamed of, like because he's like, ugh, and I'm like, don't go, like this is something people do. People have been doing it literally since the dawn of humanity, man. Like it's not that big a deal. Like two people kissing each other because they love one another is like it's a beautiful thing. Um, you know, and so I mean, like I've had some of those more basic conversations with him. Um, he's certainly not ready to get like a more in depth conversation because
Right.
he
Right.
still
Right.
is like fucking gross. Although it's kind of funny, he'll be like, ugh, fucking gross, but like I'll see him interact with like there are a couple of like his friends that are females that he'll play with like Minecraft and shit with, and he's like enamored with them,
Yep.
and he's just like, yeah, I'd really like to hang out more with her. And I'm like, well, like if you want me to call Rachel, like we can schedule time for you two to hang out and stuff like that. He's like, oh, well, I don't know. If you want to, man.
Your son is so wonderfully awkward in the best ways.
He really is in a lot
It,
of the best ways. It's kind of
it,
funny because he'll get like super excited for something and then I want to like bail on it because he feels nervous. I'm like, don't worry about it, man.
it
Like hate to break it to you, kid. You're gonna get shot down way more often than you fucking get a home run. So you might as well just knock those fuckers out of the way now.
so I know that this is a lot to put on a school, but part of the reason that I like those things taught in schools is because not everyone has good parents.
Yeah.
That may,
Oh, sorry. I didn't finish my point. My
okay,
bad. We got off on a tangent.
go on.
But part of the thing that comes up is like what you declared what that talk was with us was not wrong. Where it's like it's not wrong. If I'm a fucking teacher and I'm in a classroom with a bunch of like 12 and 13-year-olds and it's like, okay, you want me to talk to you about sex? First of all, none of y'all should be doing that shit right now. Like, not a fucking one of you. If you are, please come fucking talk to me so we can get in contact with your parents because we need to have a far more in-depth conversation, okay? Because you're getting into a lot of shit that you are too fucking stupid to understand right. And then secondly, like here are the risks that can happen when you have sex. You can get sexually transmitted diseases. I've had a couple. Um,
I have not yet.
and
Woo!
you you can. I was fucking man whore back in the day. You can have a kid. I've had one. Daniel, if you're watching this now, I don't think I've ever made this unclear, but hey, it was an accident. um, like that can happen, and that radically changes your life. There's nothing more taxing on your life than a child. It's a weight that I think that if you do have a kid, you should pick up willingly and not bitch about it. But like, it is like it's a lot of fucking responsibility. Like you're responsible for this tiny fucking human that takes up all of your time and money. Good luck. Um, so like that would be the conversation I would have with kids. But when you say it like that and you are just going to lay down like, here's the brass tacks because no, I don't want to talk to a bunch of like kids who it's like, okay, so we're going to take this banana here and I'm going to show you how much of it you can get down.
Right?
Like
No.
you can't get into like you
So
can't get into too much of like the positivity of having sex with like a bunch of kids until like later on. So
So
it's like this weird that so you got to just like lay out the fucking facts for them, and unfortunately, the facts for sex are not like if you just lay down, we just want to objectively go like, what do you gain from sex? What do you risk from sex? The risks are way fucking more than the gains. They just are,
well,
and so you're just
for
that's fine.
me
But
it's that like, so those things are important. Like, I don't want to say that we shouldn't be telling kids about
yeah,
STDs and pregnancy. Like, those things are fucking priority one. You will get
hmm
STDs if you sleep around without condoms. You will have a baby if you sleep around with the opposite gender without condoms. Like, it's going to happen, period. Okay, so but the other, like, I wish that we could, and maybe that part of the conversation doesn't need to happen at 12. Maybe we should revisit like freshman year of high school, sex ed, the adult version. Here, sex is weird. Sex is, right, adult, quote unquote. But, and I don't want, again, I don't need that, like you said, like, this is how far you can deep throat a banana, and you can get even further if you keep trying. Like, but
yeah.
explain
Don't worry. If you just fucking take a deep breath before, you'll get it down there. You know,
explain to
like
kids that, like, sex is about respect. It's about
mhm.
comfort. It's about the fact that you guys are going to be awkward, but as long as you respect one another as people, like, the awkwardness is okay. Like, accepting it as a part of human life and not putting it on a pedestal as if, like,
Yeah,
I know that the ultimate goal is to have sex with the one and have a child and whatever, but like, that is not the reality for the vast majority of human beings. And I would like us to be real about that with the children who are obviously having sex in our world all the time.
yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, you're not wrong. I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with that.
Obviously, it would have to be
But
something that we would have to get real serious about a fucking curriculum on, but
yeah, I I would almost say that I would rather that conversation be held with something where it's like, hey, we're going to do the PTA. Like we're like, here is a parent teacher conference thing that we're going to bring in with your kids where we are going to have this discussion.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely. That'd be great. Because then the parents are there
absolutely that
to
thing.
support their children too. The only flip side I have to that is a lot of children are very, sorry, let me rephrase that. The vast majority of children are very uncomfortable talking about sex with their parents. So sometimes having an open forum where their parents are not at can be better for them.
That's true. That's true. That's certainly true. I would definitely say that in the end, this is kind of where like my thing comes down to. Like this is something that, as a society, parents and society need to be more open about this with their kids.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. It always comes down to the
like
parents. I only
yeah,
bring these things up because there are plenty of children out there who do not have parents that are A, good parents, period, or B, who are not comfortable with these topics, or C, were not taught about these topics themselves in a positive manner, so
yeah,
they don't know how to teach them in a positive manner, whatever. Like, there's
certainly.
limitless things that make it so it's like, oh, okay, maybe we do need to have this conversation outside of the home because these children aren't getting that education at home.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. The problem I have is that you do put this weird thing on like a random teacher
Yep.
to
Yep.
go, okay, how do I walk this line without getting fired?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
and I can
Yep.
completely understand. Like, if I were a teacher and they were like, okay, Mr. Savoy, we'd like you to lead the sex ed talk with these students this year, and I'd be like, nope, like that's the fucking little like there ain't no fucking way I'll do it. Fucking fire me. I'll find a different fucking job. I ain't doing it.
Because
It's like, well, why not? Do you have like a comfortable with this? I'd be like, fuck yeah, I'm uncomfortable with this. Not for the reasons you fucking think, but like, fuck yeah, I'm uncomfortable with this because I'm gonna get fucking lambasted if I fuck this up in any way.
Yep.
I could do this as perfectly as I possibly can, and some motherfucker is gonna fucking be after my job. Like, so I'm good. I don't want any fucking part of this shit.
I
And I
there's just
can't blame a school board for just. I really can't blame a school
nope.
board for just like being like, we're dropping. We ain't
Yeah.
fucking doing this.
No, I'm right there
Um,
with you. Like, I totally feel where you're coming from. I just get really, sometimes I get really concerned about the amount of ignorance that children have about sex who are having
Fuck yeah. Fuck, fuck yeah. And listen, for any parent who may be listening to this that particularly has like a daughter, you should absolutely talk to your kid about sex a lot because there's going to be fucking assholes out there as young men. And probably if there are a bunch of dads listening to this, they were likely some of those young men that will absolutely prey upon your daughter's naivety about sex to exploit them.
it.
Like they're just will be. You know, men are competitive and we get shot down a lot more than we fucking win. So if we can find something that we have a fucking edge on, and we'll fucking take it. And it's shitty, and they shouldn't fucking do that. And anyone who might be listening to this as a parent that has a young fucking boy, teach your kid, man. Teach your kid to like seriously
Yep.
respect women in a lot of ways. Like beyond anything else, like it can cause like they'll go out to fuck up a lot of young women and their sexual relationships with men down the road. And B, they'll fuck up their own life. They will absolutely fuck up their own life, and they will be worse for it. It will take them a lot of shit to undo a lot of it.
Well, that's the other
So
reason that I think these sex talks could be so important if we could find a way to implement them that works for everybody because respect is so huge. Like respecting your partner as like an equal partner in just the sex. Like I'm not talking in a relationship
yeah,
or romance. Like respecting your sexual partner as an equal partner in sex is so fucking important. And like kids do not get
yeah,
that shit and they're not taught that shit.
yeah. And there are like more fundamental societal things that we put on, our children that we really oughtn't. Well, one of them being for young men, it's like you should constantly be hyper competitive in the sexual arena. I don't think that's a good standard to put on men. To be completely honest with you, because you'll get the men that succeed, and they'll all of a sudden be going around fucking every chick, and treating them like shit because they will absolutely objectify women. And then B, you'll also have a bunch of young men that just can't compete for one reason or another, and that's how you get a bunch of fucking incels. And on the flip side, we fucking infantilize a lot of young girls to just assume they're just this pretty little princess that'll never do anything fucking wrong. And they'll just nope, they'll be smart enough to fucking just make that man go away, make that young man. They're smart enough not to fall for the fucking young man with like the nice little fucking truck, and he's just a little piece. Like you as the parent can see that he's a little piece of shit, but your daughter's a fucking retard, okay? And you need to teach your daughter like, hey, you need to not be fucking retarded about this shit because you're gonna get played, and you better be ready to understand how motherfuckers will play you.
Well, and I'm
Um,
really glad that too, like we're starting to teach people that like looking beautiful should be
yeah,
something you're doing for yourself, not for other people. Like stop teaching young girls that the goal is to look beautiful to attract attention. Ultimately, yes, you want a partner, but like you should be comfortable in who you are, and if you want to look beautiful for yourself, that's the important part. Fuck everybody else.
yeah. I mean, one of the things that I did get from my sexual education teacher uh, as a student, and she was pretty fucking conservative. Um, it was funny. I talked to my history teacher at the time because she had said some shit and about how she was like, well, my husband, didn't roll up the toothpaste bottle the right fucking way. And I would tell you right now, like, I was getting ready to divorce him over that. And I mentioned that because I thought it was cool. I was like, what a fucking psycho. And I won't name his name, but Jakiahya, you had him as well. Our history teacher was like, yeah, she seems like the kind of chick that would do that. And I was just like, yeah, yeah. But she actually did say where she was like, listen, if you're having relationships just to have sex, I mean, there's like nothing else really there. Like, if you have a long term relationship, if you're looking for someone to have like a long term partner with, and the main thing in that partner is like their sexuality or just your ability to have sex with that person, that's not going to carry you for a very long relationship. It
Nope.
just isn't. It should be part of it, but at the same time, you need someone whose goals are aligned with yours, whose mentality is aligned with yours, whose work ethic is aligned with yours. Those are far more important because guess what, ladies and gentlemen? After you've been married for like 10, 12, 15, 20 fucking years, sex becomes something that you do when you got some free time and feel like it. Like like the times you will have far more um lasting memories of will be like the inside jokes, the movies that you've watched together, the hobbies that you've picked up together, the times where you have just sat around the house and done absolutely fucking nothing. Those will be far more important than your sexual relations with the person that you've been married to for a long period. So
That's why relationships are complex because all of it's important. Compatibility, sexually, work ethic, viewpoints, like drive, fucking, it all matters. It all matters.
dude, yeah, I mean, to an extent. I mean, certainly, I would say to an extent. I mean, would let's say, have we said your boyfriend's name on stream? Do we want to? Let's just not.
I haven't
Let's just
asked
not
him,
because
so yeah.
we haven't asked him. So if your boyfriend, um, for some reason, had some fucking kind of medical condition where it's like, listen, I can't have sex in you, period. Would you just leave him?
Probably not. I don't see a reason why I would. Um,
Exactly. I would not leave. I've said Kiki's name. Um, I mean, he all of a sudden had some kind of medical condition where she couldn't have sex in any way, shape, or form. Just sudden, I'd stick around. You know, I'd be like, yeah, it's not that big a deal. Listen, I can go rub one out. It's fine. Like champagne of victory. It's all right. You know, so I
well,
mean, like it is important to an extent. I wouldn't say in a long term relationship with anyone that really shouldn't be something that you're like really focused on.
it just depends. Like sex is important for some people. I don't think you should end a relationship necessarily because of it, because I think that there are other options too. Like I know that we've had a lot of discussions outside of stream about open relationships, but like if Nathan and I
Sure.
couldn't have sex,
You know what? I'm just gonna get rid of this list. Go up for the shit we were gonna talk about on stream. Just on this tangent because we've been going on for like an hour or something like that,
yeah, I know,
and
I know.
we haven't gotten off taking pride. We've done other things, which is fun.
Yeah, well, you know, it all
But you
spawned
were
from
saying open
sexuality.
relationships.
So like
Yeah,
if
totally.
Nathan and I could for some reason or another never have sex again, like I let's say that it
Hmm.
was me, you know, like I had something I couldn't have sex anymore, and sex is important to
Sure.
Nathan. Well, there's his name, Nathan. So anyway, so
You fucked up now, kid.
I know it's fine.
They've got it. You're docs now, fool.
Like I'd be like, yeah, I mean, like that's fine. You can go have sex with other people. Like that's fine. We still are building a life together. If it's important to you, be happy. Like, and that may not be the case for everybody. That's a conversation that you and your partner need to have. But for me, it would be something that's like, if I can't and it's important to you, well, let's resolve that. Like, let's make it happen because I love
Yeah.
you and I want our relationship to last. Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's let's keep the shoe on the other foot. I guess you'd say Nathan couldn't couldn't have sex for some reason, but he said he did not want you to go out and do that because he just felt uncomfortable with that. Like, let's test this out, and let's just see where we can find like limits to do. Um,
right.
would then you would be like, well, then we're not going to, or
I don't think so because sex
I
is
mean, this would
not.
be
Well,
first of all, yeah, because I mean, first of all, this is not like something where I think you ought to be like concerned, like, well, if Nathan hears this, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble or something.
well, I'm not.
But I mean, like,
I'm not that worried.
because I mean, this is a ridiculous medical fucking thing. Like, it
Right.
could fucking happen. Sorry, you know.
I don't. I guess I would have to talk about. I would have. First of all, sex is not that important to me, so like I probably wouldn't. But I am a person who like really values trust, and like I would need to know like what his issues are, because like you know when Nathan and I first got together, like I'm best friends with one of my exes from high school and a little bit after high school, and I basically laid it on
Yeah.
the table like we're friends. If you don't like it, that's your problem. It's not my issue. Like
Hmm.
I'm with you, that's my choice. And if you can't trust that like
Yeah.
I made that choice because I want to be with you, that's your problem. So like I would
Yeah.
need to lay out like we would really need to lay out like what his issues are because like not trusting me would not be an acceptable would not be an acceptable concern because that would make me leave him quicker than wanting to have sex with other people.
Yeah.
So like
But I'm saying, okay, okay. No, I
it,
understand.
yeah, it would have to be about like why you're not comfortable with me sleeping with other people. Like, is it because you can't and you feel like it's unfair? Because I can get that. Like, I can understand that like that sucks for you and like maybe you want us to suffer together and I can understand that. But if it's because like you don't trust that like
Oh,
I'll still love you, then maybe like I don't know, that feels really like childish to me and would probably upset me.
I mean, I
You're lagging a little
concern
bit.
though.
Hold on.
Like I could not look at. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're
My
good.
is it better? Is it better
Uh,
now?
we seem like we're
Are we
back.
good? Okay. Um. Okay. But I would say that complaint, if Nathan were to give you that complaint, that it's like, well, I'm concerned that because I can't do this and you're going out sexually with other people that you may leave me. Like I would completely understand that as being a concern. Like, maybe I'm wrong. I don't am though. I mean I could completely understand someone in this ridiculous medical situation where they're just like, listen, if you ejaculate or have any kind of fucking sexual activity at all, you'll just fucking die. Like it just can't work for some fucking reason. Of all of a sudden their partner going out and sleeping with other people, like I completely are like, first of all, that would be very psychologically damaging to an individual because like sexuality is part of your existence. But I mean, like, secondly, like I would completely understand. Like that seems like a legitimate fear to me of someone to be like,
See,
it's not that I don't trust you. I just completely understand how easily it could be like, well, the grass is awfully fucking greener over here, you know?
see, to me, it feels like a slight because the idea of like you like that's basically that person saying that like because they can't have sex with you, like that was the whole of your relationship. And it's like, no, it's just a piece of it that I lost, and I just want to fulfill that piece in another location. But like every other piece of the puzzle is still perfect, and I love it. You know what I mean? So like, it's like I'm just
Sure.
missing one puzzle piece.
It would certainly take. I mean, yeah. I mean, it would
And
certainly
there would
take
have to be
interest. I mean, and
it's one of those
yeah,
things where like there would have to be ground rules and there would have to be like a whole conversation. Like it's not like it'd be like, okay, you can't sleep with
yeah,
me, so I'm sleeping with whoever I want, whenever I want, however I want. Like there's no world in which that would be acceptable. It would, if that were a situation that arose, it would have to be some sort of like, listen, we need to have ground rules, maybe X amount of times per however long, with X amount of people, no repeats, whatever, 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 whatever. Like an endless list of like this is ifs, ands, or like we need to make sure we're comfortable with this. But to
yeah.
me, outright being like no just feels like you don't trust the fact that I love every other piece of the puzzle that we've put together.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. I mean, it would obviously have to be like a really long discussion you would have to have with that person.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. It would totally need.
Because
It,
for
it
me,
would
a
be it would
relation.
be a lot of like listen to these concerns,
Yep.
walk them through, figure out where these issues are, what kind of things can we totally fuck up here, because we need to get this fucking down pat
Yep.
right now because it will very easily spiral out of control so quickly.
Well, because that's the
Um,
other part of it.
so
While
yeah, I
while I
totally.
might while I may be someone who's like if you can't have sex with me, maybe I want to have sex other places. I also want to make sure that you are comfortable and you are happy because again, all of the other puzzle pieces, the rest of the puzzle we've built together, I'm happy with. I just want to fix this one
Yeah,
piece.
we're cool. We're cool there.
So I want to make
Yeah.
sure that if I'm fulfilling that last little bit, that we are still happy with the rest of it because I love the rest of it. You know what I mean? And I think that
Okay.
comes down to like a
Okay.
really strong mutual love and respect that is hard and would be like we talked about a long conversation and difficult on both sides.
Well, and I would even say, even if you did that, insane hypothetical situation that we have going on where one person just for whatever reason medically cannot have sex, I think even then the pitfalls, no matter how well you have articulated this and written up the contracts and gone through every possible thing, you would still find like, because I feel like for the person who is going out and having other sexual partners, it would be so fucking easy to fuck that up. You know, it is almost like an unfair contractual agreement here, where it's like, okay, I hold like the person who cannot have sex holds all of the judgment in their hand. The person who is having sex holds all of the responsibility. It's like only one of us can fuck up here, you know.
Right.
And it would be so easy for you in that situation to make a mistake and potentially cause catastrophic damage to a relationship.
Yeah.
Um,
It's just
you know,
about, you know, and I don't know if I'm one of these people or not. I don't think I am, but some people value sex, and like I respect that some people value sex highly, and I get it.
mhm.
So I can understand a situation where that might be really important. So
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely. I mean, I fucking know people who value sex a lot. You
yeah.
know, there are guys in the fucking Navy where it's like, fuck, how many kids you got, bro? Like, I got 8. It's like, Jesus, fuck, maybe y'all should stop. Fuck. It's like, go out on deployment, come back, fuck like rabbits for 3 months, got another fucking kid, go back on deployment, come back, high five my new baby. You know, it's like, fucking A, man. Um, like, chill the fuck out. Like, fuck, man. Do you want to like
Uh,
stop having kids? And they're just like, nah, I ain't getting my shit snipped. And it's like, maybe you ought to, dude. It's like, I just love fucking. And just from someone who has been trying to have a kid with my wife for a little while now, like, and by a little while I mean like years. It requires a lot of fucking, like,
speaking
a fucking
speaking of that,
ludicrous amount of fucking.
speaking of which, just wrapping around to our fake scenario again, real quick. If I were a woman, and like Nigel, let's say I was a woman and I was with you and you're the man and I can't have sex anymore and you can, I'd be like, you getting a vasectomy? And you're like, no, I'm not. I said, listen, you never having sex again if you don't get this fucking vasectomy. That's the deal. Period.
That would be something understandable.
Yeah,
Like I would be like, yeah, I get that.
because we ain't bringing more babies in here, especially if they ain't mine and we in a happy marriage. It ain't happening. You getting that?
Well,
Shit.
and that actually leads us to kind of originally what we sort of talked about, where it's like the gay community tends to be more open to polyamory, and we've had this conversation in the past. Because I just personally don't think polyamory can function properly. I'm super skeptical because I've known, like in the military, there are lots of people that try to do polyamorous relationships by necessity. Um, I don't know any of them that worked. Not a one. Not a fucking one. And not in the Navy or out of the Navy. Do I know any of those polyamorous relationships that worked under the best of circumstances? But I will say they were all in straight relationships. And that's something that you had brought up in the past where it's like, well, in the gay community, open relationships are relatively common. Um, and they seem to work. And that kind of made me kind of think like that's super interesting why that is the case. And the only thing that I really could come down to is like there is a fundamental concern in straight couples where it's like, well, hey, we can have kids accidentally.
Yep.
And that's some
Yep.
extra shit that you're bringing onto the fucking table that is just way too potential. And in my opinion, if you've already had a child with someone and now you're trying to pull like this open relationship thing, good fucking luck. That is a fucking Maginot line of fucking landmines that
Yep.
you're not gonna fucking get around.
Again,
Like, good
if
luck.
I were in a straight relationship and it was like we're going to be in an open relationship, it'd be like, are we trying to have kids? If the answer is no, well then whoever's trying to be open, they getting snipped and or tied. Period.
Yeah,
Not a
yeah,
discussion.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
And again, that like part of the reason that that's such a difficult thing. Like I don't understand. I mean, I don't understand why anyone who's gay wouldn't get a vasectomy. I mean, it seems fucking unnecessary. I understand that, but it's
I
like
mean,
it
we just
doesn't matter. It's like, yeah, it's like it doesn't fucking matter to me.
right.
Like I'm gay. I'm not gonna have.
Yeah,
Or
but
if I want to have a fucking kid, I gotta go through a lot of fucking like it's very intentional. I'm not gonna accidentally have a fucking child.
well,
So whereas in like the straight community, like that is a big thing in the straight community is something where it's like getting a vasectomy or getting your tubes tied or something like that because so much of what you could consider, I guess, straight culture is wrapped into your reproductive capability.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it is there. Like again, me and Kiki have been trying to have a kid for a long fucking time, and like there are things that come up. Like even with me, like it does emotionally hurt me as a guy every time that like a pregnancy doesn't stick. Because as much as it's like, well, like went there, she got a little pregnant, I guess would be the way to say it, and then it didn't work or something along those lines. There are reasons why that could be because on my end, like
Yeah.
my boys ain't working enough. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Like those things emotionally do hurt you. There are a lot of like put downs. Like it does harm your bit of self worth. And so it's a fragile thing. Like I mean, like women who are barren, it particularly affects women way more, just because it physically affects them way more. I can say how much this hurts my feelings when these things happen, but like Kiki is the one that had to miscarry. So um, you talk to women who can't have kids and things like that, and if you wanted to make a girl fucking cry and she can't have fucking kids, attack her on she can't have fucking kids, man. It's like the most scarring thing you could fucking attack someone.
Well, stuff like
You
that
know?
is why you're seeing a big thing on like internet circles and PC circles and stuff like that about like stop asking people why they have not had kids yet. Do not look at a married
Yeah,
couple that's in their 30s and say, "Oh, you haven't had kids yet? Why not?" Because that woman could be someone who can't have kids and now you have broken her spirit for the day.
yeah, and
You have literally
yeah,
broke her heart.
it would certainly be very rude. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would certainly say like it would be very rude.
And that's why like a
Unless
lot of
you're
people are like
yeah,
in like the whole PC movement and stuff, and in this context I don't even mean that as a negative thing. Like
yeah.
that's why people are very much like stop asking people why they're not having kids or when they're having kids. Stop.
Mhm. Well, and I think a lot more people are coming forward with there. That's becoming more of an open thing where it's like a lot more people are just understanding like, wow, it is actually like it can take a lot of work to just have kids. Like
Dude,
you got
it's
to catch a chick in her ovulation fucking window. I hope she's going off the fucking. I hope one of her tubes ain't fucking fucked up, which is super fucking common. Like the amount of women who don't understand that they only ovulate out of one fucking tube is insane. It's just like, oh yeah, well sometimes I have a harsher period, and it's like probably because one of your shit's fucked up.
yeah.
Um, like catching them at the right time. What are you wearing as a fucking guy? What is your job as a guy? What are you eating as a guy? What are you doing physically as a guy? Like all these things come up where it's like, fuck, man, it practically got to wait for the stars to align sometimes.
I know, and then you get
Before
these
like
fucking
rockets
people
pick up.
and then you get these fucking people like this girl that I knew in high school who said, and I don't know the validity of it, but she swears she used a condom and was on birth control, still got pregnant.
I don't believe.
You don't think so?
I don't believe it for a second. Yeah, yeah. I don't believe it for one fucking second.
I don't
She
know. She
just
says it.
felt some. She just felt some certain way about it. It's a lie. It's a lie.
I don't know.
It's totally a
There's
lie.
always that 1 in 1 million chance people get fucking unlucky.
No, 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 no. Good. Beyond anything else, let's just look at physics. All right. I've fucking busted a load off. You've busted a load off. We know about how much fucking fluid comes out here. All right. Horns of fucking life. They're using fake chicks' faces and shit like that. All right. No one's dropping like a gallon of jizz. Okay. If you're wearing a condom and it's actually you're wearing it the right fucking way, it's all being fucking contained.
Hey, it could have a small hole in it or something. You never know.
Then, then you weren't working it fucking. Right. And also, from fucking understanding about this fucking shit, unless you just have some fucking X-Man mutant power of quantity of fucking like fertilizing semen, like fertilizing sperm in your fucking semen, a pinhole or a pen hole in that fucking condom, there ain't enough getting there to fucking do shit. It
What do you
takes a
mean?
lot.
No, it's only one cell. They all fight, but it's only one cell.
They don't all fight. You've got like blockers that go through and like block the path for the other ones. You've got you've got other ones that actually go for it and like die and like they don't like adjust the pH, but essentially like a woman's vagina is kind of fucking acidic. It makes it difficult to get there to fucking fertilize that fucking child. Um, and there's only like some of them that actually go and like impregnate fucking anything. And so if you had just one swimmer in there, he ain't making that race. Like he ain't fucking doing it. It is what it is. And then if she's also on birth control, just that right there, it is changing her physiology, her physiology to trick her body into thinking that she's already pregnant. So she's not producing like a fertile egg. So if that happened, I would wonder like, okay, that's probably like a Down syndrome baby at best.
The failure rate of condoms in couples which use them consistently and correctly is estimated about 3% during the first year of use. However, the true failure rate during the time period is estimated to be about 14%.
Failure. So
Well,
that's what
yeah,
I'm saying. If you're
using a
wearing a condom properly,
Well, yeah, but
well,
using a condom properly can still fail.
well, then objectively it fucking failed. But I'm saying if they were using a condom, they were saying they were using it fucking properly, and she was on birth control. I don't fucking believe it. I don't believe it. Not for
It
one fucking
happens.
second. I don't think it does. I do not fucking believe it does. I think that is. I think there is a subsect of people who are hung up about how, or they don't want to admit fault when accidental pregnancies occur, and they make up fucking stories. Because I think if you were to go to any doctor on the fucking planet and go, so they were wearing a condom and she was taking birth control, but they got pregnant. They'd be like, I don't think that fucking happened. But if you really want to say that that fucking happened, you should sue both the condom company and whoever makes your fucking birth control.
I mean,
you could probably make a pretty big cash.
I don't think you can sue the condom company because they don't say 100% effective. That's why they don't.
Sure. Then sue whoever the fuck it is. Because like I don't think you'd find any doctor that would sit there and I think if you were to have like a fucking 19-year-old that came in and be like, but I had a condom and we were taking birth control, they'd be like, sure you were. Bullshit. Like bullshit. You weren't fucking doing either of those things.
I don't know. I understand that things happen, you know. Science is weird.
Yeah, things happen, but I don't buy that one. Not for a second. Let's just take it onto a logical tree. We can either go with the infinitesimally small possibility that they were wearing a condom and she was taking birth control and they still got pregnant. Which is more likely? That or she was incorrect?
I mean,
I'm not
listen,
lying, but incorrect.
Listen, I understand that that's possible. I'm just saying that there's a percent chance, whether or not it's even below 1%. Some people get real unlucky.
Sure, I don't think that percent exists. I think it's a 0% chance. But off on that. And that is another reason why we should be having more conversations with teenagers about like proper sexual intercourse and like utilizing contraceptives and things. Because hey,
proper use of contraceptives, man, that one's number one.
Exactly. Exactly. It took me a long time to realize that you can put on a condom the wrong way.
I'm gonna be honest. I've been with the same man for 8 years. I've used a condom 3 times in my whole life. So I would probably use one wrong.
Hey man, listen, I was a teenager and and hey, I'm not sucking my own dick here, but I was an attractive young man. It took me many experiences before I really like, what do you mean you can put it? Like it's the right way. It's like, no, put it on the wrong way. So I mean, hey, it is what it is. And the amount of, as I get older, I have just less and less respect for like people's rationality and people's capability to make like sound judgments. So most of the women that are like, yeah, I totally like any young man who might be listening to this, any woman that tells you they're taking birth control, assume they're a fucking liar. Like just assume they're a liar, okay? It will not hurt you to assume they're a liar. It can hurt you a lot to take them on their word and fuck this up. Um, because because they're probably not lying, but the amount of women who will forget to take a pill or will just make mistakes or not get their timing down on it and shit like that, significantly high.
Well, I
To
mean,
all young men listening, how what do you think the percentage in your like high school are there to smart girls versus dumb girls?
well, and even
You're
taking out
probably not hooking up with the smart girls.
well, and even taking out IQ, like how many fucking times like in your life do you remember to take the same fucking pill every day forever? Like dude, I take allergy medicine every day and forget it some days. Like so and I don't even that's not even a slight on them being dumb. Like you got to take the same fucking pill every day at the same time every fucking day? Bro, I'd be doomed. I'd be pregnant forever.
Yeah, you'd have like 8 kids.
I'd be pregnant forever. Every time I
Nah,
got done.
you'd have been a prude. You'd have been that female that would have been like, I ain't fucking you. it ain't happening. It ain't happening. My mom had 7 fucking boys or whatever the fuck. We ain't doing
She had
this.
6 kids, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. My mom had like 6 kids. I see what's down that road. It ain't fucking happening.
My legs are closed for business. I'm evangelical at this point.
Well, that's like a crazy thing. Like, in some ways, with the sexual environment, the way that it is now, as a guy with like a young boy, you know, I grew up not being taught like the super Protestant Catholic values of like, if you fucking jack off, you're gonna grow hair in your palms and go blind, or or if that you have sex that you should be really ashamed of it. Like I didn't really get that. My dad didn't want me going into like explicit detail or anything like that, but you know, he understood what was going on and didn't give me any shit for it or anything like that. I think for like my 17th birthday, he was like, "Hey man," it might have been my 16th birthday. But I think his birthday present to me was nothing but like a fucking massive box of like 60 condoms. He was like, "Just in case, bud." You know, that was just what he did. So like, I grew up in a time, and I felt like it was like there were lots of mistakes that I made, but there are lots of mistakes that you just simply make as a teenager. Ladies, there are lots of mistakes you all make too, and there are lots of mistakes that young men are going to make, and they're going to absolutely make the mistakes. Um, but I felt like I grew up in a time where you could safely make those mistakes without like such grievous ramifications that could like affect the rest of your fucking life. And now you be in a situation where you are 2 young teenagers and you do make mistakes. And I'm not talking about like fucking raping someone, or I'm not talking about like, having a poor sexual encounter that ends in violence or anything like that. Like, yes, those things should absolutely be persecuted in lots of different fucking ways. But you could have lots of situations where it's like you had sex with someone and then you broke their heart, or something along those lines. There are situations in this world where we live today where you can't make a lot of those mistakes anymore. You can't sit there and be as sexual as a guy, I guess, in a lot of capacities without like some serious fucking concerns. So I look at it with like my kid. It's like, well, fuck, I practically want to teach Daniel where it's like, listen, sex is okay, but, you know, you could go to prison for a long time if you fuck the wrong girl. And there's nothing you can fucking do about it. I almost want to sit there and tell him, like, I do have this quandary in my fucking mentality of like telling my kid, like, don't tell him to be open sexually and all those kind of things like that, and be comfortable with sex in a lot of different ways, or do I take the safe route and try my damnedest to instill in him, like, be fucking Protestant almost, be like a fucking Quaker, because it's like, well, why, Dad? Like, why? This seems so anti-freedom and love and things like that. And it's like, because, son, there are so many ways that you are going to fuck this up, and you do this with the wrong fucking chick at the wrong fucking time, and your ass is going to go to fucking jail. Or at best case scenario, you're going to be publicly blasted because you had some awkward sexual relationship that neither of you understand. You were figuring out what you liked and what you fucking didn't like, and maybe she found out things that she didn't like, and you found out things that you did like, and those two things didn't fucking mesh in some way, shape, or form. And now she's considering it like sexual assault in some way. And guess what? There is nothing you can do to clear you. You know.
Well, and I think that the not that this is infallible, but I think that's what makes respect so important. And I'm not just talking about respect for like each other as sexual partners. Yes, that's important.
Yeah.
But like man, teaching people how fucking important it is to have respect for yourself. Not bullying your kids about how they look or about fucking what they eat or whatever. Like really getting your kids to be comfortable with who the fuck they are. Because like those things happen because a person is not comfortable with themselves and then they seek comfort in another person because they're not comfortable with themselves, and then they make a poor fucking choice, and then they regret that poor fucking choice, and then they want to blame it on someone else. You know, like it comes down to really teaching people to be respectful of themselves and like respecting your own boundaries in your own life.
I don't know. I think that all everything you said is good, but I don't trust that to be a solution to the problem that
I don't
I
think it's the
brought
only
forward
solution. I just
at
think it's
all.
important.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't think it's a solution. I don't think it's any solution to that because you are because I look at someone who would sit there and claim that kind of thing like sexual assault or like rape or something along those lines to someone unless it was like very obviously such like get on the ground, that kind of thing. Almost as like psychopathic to like take that to the police and file a report against someone or to go online and then like just publicly assassinate them. That's almost to me like that's not someone I want in a society. That's almost like a psychopathic fucking trait.
Yeah, I told
Um,
you that my
the,
my a family member of mine claimed that one of my other family members raped her. He was in prison for 15 years, and then she admitted that he didn't actually do it, but she didn't
yeah,
go to jail for it. She flat out
like
admitted
that. Yeah,
he didn't do it.
that to me is like a psychopathic trait.
Yeah,
Like we would consider a person a fucking psychopath. I came into your house, hit you over the head with a fucking bat, and then kept you in my basement for 15 years. Like I would be a fucking massive piece of shit. I would be like one of the worst people in the fucking world. And that to me is equivalent. Like those two things to me are equivalent.
yeah, I
So,
think so too. Because you're ruining
and
someone's
with
life.
oh, and so I mean like your family member cannot own a firearm. It's going to be very difficult for them to get loans. It's going to be they're essentially stuck at the worst rung of society because they're never going to be able to get a good job because they're a felon for a crime that rightfully so, mind you. Society deems as like one of the worst things that you could fucking be. Um, their relationships going forward with another human being, they have to essentially convince them from Jump Street that it's like, listen, I know what you might hear, but I'm not a rapist. That's a tough fucking sell, you know.
All of
So
your
I mean, like,
interactions with people start at -5 rather than 0.
fuck yeah, like negative 35. Yeah, like, and if you get some female that's just like, oh, okay, I totally fucking trust you. Be wary of that fucking female, because like, rightfully so, any fucking person that you have to start with, like, hey, I know we're here, we're dating, we're kind of getting to know one another, and I know you might hear a lot of things about like I'm a rapist, and you know I did like 15 in prison for rape, but like, trust me, I'm not a rapist. Like, rightfully so, any female would be like, okay, well, hey, I'm pretty sure my friend just called me, and I have to fucking leave because holy balls,
I
like
I
I
gotta
feel super uncomfortable
go.
all of a sudden. Yeah, like I wouldn't blame someone. Fuck, I'd be like that. They'd be like, if I'm sitting there sitting across, like, at fucking a work fucking lunch or some shit like that. So it's like, hey, I know you might hear some things about me, but like, I did 15 years in prison for rape. I'm like, oh, cool. Fuck, I don't want to fucking be here right now. Like, holy fuck,
Yep.
that is super concerning. So, I that does like I don't know what the solution for that would be. I think there are laws that we would have to bring into place where it's just like, I think a simple one would be that if you don't have physical evidence of a rape, then you don't get to prosecute rape, you know? Um, and we can talk about various different things. Like I've heard people sit there and say, like, well, then you just encourage rapists to just like make sure that they fucking kidnap someone, you know, for something, you know, until like the evidence is gone or something like that. And I'm just like, okay, well then we're gonna get them for fucking kidnapping, which is also a rather big fucking charge. Okay? like what the fuck are you talking about? Um, so I don't know. I think sex overall in America is a very confusing subject because you have so many disparate individuals. Um, but I know for me, with like my kid, it's something that I just don't know how to prepare him for the oncoming puberty and getting into sex and things like that. Aside from just telling him like, dude, you're going to have to be so fucking aware of what you're saying, what you're doing, who you're doing it with, and like what's their fucking social media presence. Because like, dude, like they could fuck your life up forever,
I'd like to.
and
I'd
there's
like.
nothing you can do about it.
I'd like to give a shout out to Amber Heard for showing us that some people actually are just fucking insane.
Well, that doesn't still matter. Johnny Depp still lost millions of fucking dollars and had his name drugged through the mud. There's still tons of people who it
Oh,
does
I
not
know.
matter. They're still just like, well, Johnny Depp is a fucking piece of shit, a domestic abuser. And it's like, what do you mean?
She cut
Like,
his finger off.
Actually, with a bottle. Not like got a knife and whoosh, like she smashed the tip of his finger off. That's hard to I can't comprehend how you go about accomplishing that feat. Like, what the fuck? She shit in their fucking bed. Took a shit in bed. Like, just fucking dropped trow and went, you know what I'm gonna do to get back at him? And get back at him. You got back at him. You guys hired to clean the fucking room, you bitch. Like, the fuck? So, I mean, it's fucking wild to me.
Listen,
It's absolutely insane.
listen. I know she didn't wake up the whole world, but she woke up a lot of people, and I'd like to thank her for that.
Hopefully it changes. Hopefully it changes in the future. And there are definitely things that men can be better at, in society. There are definitely, there are definitely ways that I fucked over women.
Well,
in,
and
in life, where I
I was
wasn't
gonna.
like, I was not a good boyfriend in a lot of ways. But I mean, like, at the same time, like, with the benefit of hindsight, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. How many young men come from homes where they don't have a dad or their parents were fucking divorced, and so you never see like your parental figures have a healthy relationship. So what do
Right.
you think that does when they go out into their fucking dating life as fucking teenagers? They don't know what the fuck that is either, and they're not gonna know. Like, they're not gonna know for decades. And women the same way, where they go in and it's just like, how many fucking females do you see where it's like, why in the fuck do you always pick pieces of shit? And then you look back at their family, it's like, oh, because your dad was never around. You don't know what a not piece of shit guy looks like or how to interact with him.
Well,
You
and
know?
like after talking about all of this, I feel like we owe it, and I know we both feel this way, but I feel like we owe it to anyone watching this video to say it, is that men do better too. You're not like it's
Yeah.
not all on the fucking women. Like
No.
fucking do
I
better
thought I did
about.
say that.
I mean, you did, but like
Yeah.
I just
Okay.
want to make sure, like because like
Yeah.
like for instance, like the whole thing about like two people get drunk and they have sex and then someone cries rape, like no, that's unacceptable. But boys,
Yeah.
don't take advantage of women when they're drunk. Don't do it.
Yeah. Well, hey, guys, how about we steer society away from needing alcohol to be willing to fucking have sex with
Right.
like, like, this seems to inherently lead to a lot of problems. If you need, like, anyone watching this, if you feel that you need to take any substance to have the confidence or capability to have sex with another person, you should really go seek some help, because that is a fucking big, like,
Yeah.
that is a really big problem that you should address. That is an underlying issue that you should absolutely address. Um, I am someone who's pretty firmly now against like hookup culture. I don't think it's a good thing. Um, I think most people who really are like, I fucking love hookup culture, probably if you were to sit them down and have like a really heart to heart conversation, probably are not as happy as they'd like to think that they are. Um, and there may be like a very small subsect of individuals who can make that kind of culture work, but I don't think it works. And I don't think for a society as a whole, it's a good standard to set. Because I think people want to try and disassociate sex with their emotions and their emotional stability and things along those lines. But I don't think that's possible. I think just the sheer act of having sexual intercourse with another human being is an inherently emotional thing, as much as one might try to make it not. And sometimes those emotional connections can actually be negative emotional connections that you're trying to impose upon yourself or another person. But it's still inherently wrapped up in that. A lot of guys, the kind of player mentality that comes from them, are like, "Fuck yeah, man! I can totally disassociate. I can fuck 10 chicks and totally disassociate um, my emotional state from those sexual encounters." Is probably more along the lines of I have certain feelings of inadequacy towards myself, and I am utilizing these sexual experiences to try and like cover up that certain inadequacy I have.
on
Um,
on that note, in a circle back sort of thing, in my brain, I think that's why polyamory actually kind of works, is because like the emotional part, like you have it, you're satisfied with your relationship emotionally, and like you can utilize quote unquote hookup culture for those things because you're not seeking emotional like comfort or anything like that.
yeah, but I don't. I think you're going to. I think you're going to be getting that emotion. I think if that's how you feel, if that's the tap that we want to go down the line of, that's why polyamorous or open relationships can work. I would say that that is almost destined to explode if anything gets difficult in the relationship. Because if you're taking those kind of inadequacies that you have about yourself and trying to mask that or try to make that right within your own mind through sexual conquest is usually kind of the idea, at least from the masculine side of that thing, where it's like I feel like I feel like more of a man because I can go out and I can pull any fucking chick, that kind of thing.
No, no, no.
That's all like that to me is like there are certainly better ways that you like that's only going to work for so long. What happens when you get too old?
No,
What
no,
next?
no.
It's like,
What I'm
well, now I
saying
got to do this
is
by paying for it or something. That's going to blow up.
what I'm saying is that like by focusing on relationship first and having like a happy relationship and then having an open relationship, your hookup is not about insecurities. It's about like, hey, I just enjoy fucking other people. Like it stops being a need to like seek other emotional comfort or disguise your own because you've already rectified those things in your current relationship. You know what I mean?
So while that might work for a that's for a very small percentage of individuals, I think that would be a lie most people told themselves because your sex and your emotions are inherently related to one another. Um, they just are. You're going to have certain feelings of attraction, of intimacy, of in some capacities. There are a lot of people who sex with other people that feel like they love that person, and then they come to find that they don't. And those things are always going to be there. I don't think that you can. Again, I'm going to speak for the general public because I'm certain that there are going to be some people who are just like, I can do this. And I would say that they're absolutely the exception, not anywhere near the rule. And I would say that I'd be willing to say that most people who would make that claim probably lied. Um, I don't I wouldn't quite. It's like anyone that can sit there and say and tell me that they can totally separate their emotional state from their sexuality or from the act of sex, I would say is probably telling me a lie. I'm not believing that at face value until I know that person way better. And I would imagine that once I know that person way better, I I'd probably be able to pull big holes in their rationale for that and find underlying things that they're trying to make up for with these kind of with those kind of sexual encounters. I just don't quite buy it. Because
I don't
there are
know.
just a lot of lies that people tell themselves. There just simply are. There are lots of lies that people tell themselves about themselves, and they even can get us to like kind of believe it, but it eventually comes.
I always also, and I know we've had this discussion, and this is not a diss to anyone in polyamorous relationships. In fact, it's more of like a, wow, I really respect you. I don't know how people can have more than one active partner. I barely have the energy for work, my current partner, and my dog. You think I got time for another one? Mm-mm, nope, ain't got it. I commend you for having the time and energy. Those of you that make a polyamorous relationship work, you have way more love and energy to give than I do.
Yeah, yeah. I have no fucking. I I was a young man who tried to juggle multiple girlfriends, and fuck, man. By the once they found out about each other, I was kind of like, thank God, like, thank God we can be done with this bullshit. Like, thank fucking God we can be done with this with all this bullshit because motherfucker, that was exhausting.
I
Like
just
that was
people
fucking terrible.
because again, I do think that these people are a small percentage, but those people that are in polyamorous relationships or that are in triads or whatever that have multiple partners, and actually not even the ones that are in triads because those ones at least live in the same house. Let's talk about the ones that have like two or three partners and they're all okay with each other, but they don't live together and they're not partners with each other. It's just this one person is partnered with just person two and person three, but person two and three are not partnered together. Like, where do you get the time and energy for that? I don't. I can't even imagine. Like, I commend you because I don't got it.
I would imagine that one of those people is probably by normal standards getting neglected. You could make that work with one person who is essentially just like a human cat, where they're just like, I only like interacting with people when I feel like it, and every other time, y'all can fuck off. Um, and then the person who is in the relationship, like, so person A is in relationship with person B and C, but person B and C are not in a relationship with one
Right.
another and maybe don't even communicate very often. Either person B or person C is probably a human house cat.
Right.
And so this is just like person, like let's say person C is the house cat, okay? Person B takes up 80% of person A's time and energy, and person C can be dropped at the they can just be fucking like any point in time if person A or B just wants nothing to do with that person, it's just they're gone. Like they're
Yeah.
gone. And person C has to be okay with that as well, which is
Right.
very difficult because guess
Right.
what? We're social fucking creatures and being just fucking like dropped like you're fucking garbage on Wednesday feels bad. Like feels bad.
I
And
just wonder, like,
I would imagine that if you were to talk to person A candidly, they'd probably be like, "Oh yeah, it's a lot of fucking
yeah.
work.
I
It's a lot
just
of work. This takes up almost all my fucking
I
time."
just want to commend the people that make it work. You know, those one percenters that are like, yeah, this polyamory absolutely works for all three of us and we're all happy. It's like, y'all motherfuckers are G's because I ain't got the energy or the time. I don't know how you do it.
The only person that I've heard of who is in a relationship like that and has seemed to make it work, although we've also seen it publicly blow up before, is Stephen Bonnell, who's on YouTube as Destiny. He is very open and talks a lot about his open relationship with his wife, Melina. And the way he has described it is that it's like Melina is my main squeeze. We have an open relationship, and neither of us like I have other people that I do sexual things with, but even he has talked about how it's like it's insanely difficult. Like it's insanely difficult because I have to find people who are willing to have sex with me. And I also have to be incredibly wary of the conversations that I have because he's like he almost talks about how he's like, I have to almost like mind read them, where if they start asking certain things about Melina or about my kid or about anything, which to a lot of people can just be normal. It's like, oh, well, how old's your kid? You know, what's going on with Nathan? You know, what's doing this? Like, what's happening with that? You know, things like that. He has to be like, hey, cut it off right there because you're not my main squeeze. You don't need to have any fucking interaction with them in any way, shape, or form. You know,
Yeah.
you know, because he's constantly, and it blew up on him because he had a relationship with someone who did get that, and it blew up rather bigly. Like, I mean, it was kind of an ordeal in Destiny in the DGG community. Um, you know, and that was kind of thing. And he's been way more, and he's even talking about it. He's like, I don't think he's like, I think I'm an incredibly unique individual, and I think me and Melina are incredibly unique individuals, and most people cannot make this like at all.
I know.
He's like the kind of like negotiation and contracting and all these kind of things that has to go through for me to have this open relationship work. He's like it's a fucking lot. You know, I mean, I would go so far as to say I think he's even said like I do not recommend the kind of relationship I have to almost anyone.
Yeah.
It's like I don't recommend.
I get it.
For,
Like we've talked about, I work 50 hours a week. I want to be able to enjoy my free time, and I Nathan and I don't even, honest to God, spend enough time together, let alone adding more partners into that. No, 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 no. My energy levels
oh
don't
yeah.
exist like that. And I'm an extrovert. I'm an extrovert saying these things.
Well, and that's part of the thing too is like you look at like Destiny's situation, which is again the only polyamorous relationship that I've ever heard of anyone having for a long term time, and it fucking works.
Right.
Um, you know, he works like he streams and he works like 12 hours a day. If you take his streaming along with all the back end shit that he has to do to set up interviews, manage, you know, like the employees that he has, and he's gone and done like canvassing and all sorts of shit like that. He works a lot, but he works from home.
Ah,
Like, like that doesn't seem like a lot. You can have a lot of hours where it's like, listen, I'm working, I'm not really interacting with you. But it's a lot different when it's like, hey, babe, I'm here at the computer doing my job. You know, like leave me alone. Versus like I'm gone for 12 hours a day.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
big difference. Anyway, um, anything else you have to say about sex and relationships? I don't
No,
know what we've accomplished with this time.
I don't know. It was kind of fun. I think there were
Yeah,
some things. I
yeah, it
think
is fun. I don't know if we came to like some groundbreaking
I
revolution.
think we've had a circular thing of like some good stuff and then some tangent bullshit as usual. So
Well, hopefully, what I would hope that anyone listening to this would gain out of this conversation is some insight into the gay community and how relationships work within the gay community, as well as some of the concerns about relationships in the gay community, as well as some of the concerns and the disparities between that community's relationships and the straight community's relationships. And hopefully, I would love to see a gay person who has questions about straight relationships or just is curious for whatever reason to listen to this and listen to my stories and my takes on a lot of these things and go, oh, okay, I kind of get that. And for a straight person who doesn't know very much about the gay community or gay relationships or something like that, to potentially listen to your side of the story and go, oh, okay, I learned a couple things about
I
it
would
that I didn't
also
know.
I would also ask. I know that we don't have a whole lot of viewers yet, but I would love if any people that do watch this, if you have anything to add about like kink at Pride or like sex
100%.
education for children or anything. I would love to hear other people's opinions on it and how they feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would love to hear that because that's always something when you're talking about groups is you always tend to have like you have the problem of like if you're a gay person and this sucks for you, but like if you're a gay person and you talk about like, well, this is what I think about this thing in the gay community, you get people that take it as though like, well, you're speaking for all of the gays, and you do have some people in the gay community who do act as though they speak for all gay people in the world. And I think that that's always ridiculous. That's why I always hate when you see people make these hot takes of like, this gay person said this about gay culture, and therefore that means all gay people think this way. And it's like, that's absolutely not the fucking case. And you get that with gay
Every
people, you get
every
that with
group.
trans people, you get that with black people. like ironically every minority group. I think it's pretty hard to find someone who like speaks for all of the majority group.
Well, but you could, rather than saying minority and majority, you could say like conservatives, Democrats, like even those groups, you have people that try to speak for all of them.
Yeah, I guess that would be. Yeah, I guess you're right there. So yeah, if anyone who is in the LGBT community wants to sit there and comment down below about what they think about it, I promise you, I'll read every single comment. Um, but we'd love to hear it because I'd love to get a more disparate view. I mean, maybe me and Jakiahya are the outliers to this in some capacity, or maybe we're touching on something that more people feel that they haven't been heard about. And sure, I'd love for
Well,
you guys to comment down.
and I
Please do.
and I know that we're rambling here, but another thing, like I know that I'm not as educated on the topic as I could be. I would love for people to bring to me a lot more of the importance of what kink means to them that I may not know because I didn't grow up in an era where it was as important to me.
Sure, I would love to get an old queen on here and have them talk about the old gay days. I think that would be an incredibly interesting conversation.
I
There'd
think
at
so
least be
too.
some wild stories. Some like 58-year-old gay guy who's like sits there, pulls out a fucking cigarette. All right, yo, bloods. Let me tell you how it was. That would be fucking hilarious. Like I'd be like, oh my god, this is gonna be phenomenal.
Oh, good lord.
uh, so anyway, you want to wrap it up there, Jake?
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks everybody for watching. This was our sex education, kink at pride podcast, screaming at walls. That's Nigel. I'm Jakiahya, and it's been a great night, everybody.